to be the nice girl. Okay, we're going to specifically focus on women, but this applies to men too. Men, you don't have to click off, because trust me, I can guarantee you a lot of you guys are doing these mistakes too. What is this mistake that you're asking? You know, when you first get into a relationship, and I'm going to beat myself up first, but I'm gonna keep it 100% raw with you in this video. When I used to get into relationships, when I was young, naive, and dumb, I used to believe the more difficult I was, or the more that I required or asked for, the least the guy would like me or want to be with me. He would not see me as like his dream girl and stuff. So I tried to be very agreeable, very nice. I didn't ask for much. I didn't require much, but I was giving a lot. You know, I was giving a lot basically. And in most cases, I haven't had much boyfriends in this life, but the ones that I did have were very, they weren't a-holes to the third degree. You know what I mean? So they didn't take advantage of that. But I also noticed that if I'm keeping it real with myself, certain things that I didn't like, I didn't speak up about because I didn't want to rock the boat. But that's also going with the whole people pleasing thing. I was like that in my regular life, whether with family, with friends, colleagues, whoever. I was a people pleaser.
So there's a couple of things that I want to, go ahead and break down. And first thing I'm going to talk about is really just, we're always talking about image, because I do think image is very important. And I don't think a lot of people really talk about that enough. And I'm not against this lady's image. I think it's actually very clean, very crisp. But it is a style. And that style might not necessarily be a style that you as a guy, for the guys that are watching me, might like. I mean, almost everything. I mean, she has on fake nails and that hair is not hers, or she bought it. I mean, it's hers because she owns it. But I want to make sure that you guys kind of understand this because, like I said, my background is media. And for me, if I ran into a woman like this, I would date her. I would not have a problem with it. Why? Because I know, okay, that hair is not hers. I know that it's going to come off and more than likely she has cornrows or something like that underneath. But a lot of men, they get confused with this. And so I'm just trying to make sure that you can kind of see like the differences to try to understand what's really going on, because I think sometimes it's the lie of it that makes men upset. It's the same thing with her nails. Again, you can kind of, I mean, if you really around these types of things and you pay attention, you can kind of tell. But again, it wouldn't necessarily bother me. But I mean, like I say, I'm just used to it. OK, so I kind of know, kind of how to navigate. I just wanted to put that out there. Again, nothing against her. I think she has put herself together very well according to what she's trying to do. OK, so now let's get to this whole nice guy, nice woman doing something for someone. One of the things that I've learned, throughout, my own experiences, actually even talking to other people is that, because I call people givers, there's givers and there's takers. And one of the things that I've learned is that givers many times find takers. It is a really interesting phenomenon, but, it happens. And the reason why it happens is because givers want to literally give. And so you can be in an argument literally over giving, and you say, what, Jay, how can you say that? Well, I've gone through it. I've actually personally experienced it. I've actually been in a situation where I was on a date and, the waiter or whatever, brought, some food, brought an appetizer. And I'm like, okay, well, let me, give you this, this appetizer, because I was just like, well, do you want blah, blah, blah. And she was kind of doing something at the time. So I was like, okay, well, I'll just put it on a plate, and give it to you. I'm not really thinking anything of this. And so all of a sudden, she's like, no, I'll get it. And so what ended up happening was we were kind of fighting over who is going to do the work of serving the other person. Crazy thing, it's really something really small. That's why I say most of the time you can find your person by how they do the dance. I'm always talking about like how they do the dance. And this literally was going on. And so in the back of my mind, a bell was starting to go off and just saying, hey, Jay, just let her do it. Let her do it, because I've learned that a lot of women that are givers, they have to give. I mean, it's almost like it's like it's a compulsion that they have to give. But, I'm a giver, too. So I actually enjoy giving. But I've learned that sometimes I have to take a step back if I want a giver in my life, because if I don't, then we will literally battle out over who's going to give the most. And it ends up being a problem, in the very beginnings of a relationship. But then later on, everything's great. But when you are a giver and then you're dealing with a taker, what happens is you give to the person in the very beginning, and then later on, you find out that this person is a taker. They don't really give. And so one of the things that I always want people to understand is with this whole nice guy, nice girl thing, and even the fact like she talked about how, nice guys finish last, nice girls finish last. I always think that that is actually 100% not true. Because again, a lot of times our society leans into a truth that it sees based upon just how people naturally act without actually going into the depths. Okay, so you're saying, Jay, okay, what in the world are you talking about? Okay, so here's one for you. The average person in America is going to be on a prescription drug to help them manage their life by the time they are 50 to 55 years old. The average American. But if we just look at that one bit of information, we're like, okay, well, yeah, I see some truth in that. There is some things, this is what's happening, blah, blah, blah. But if we pull back the veil, we start to see the reason why a lot of Americans are experiencing that is because they're not taking care of their body. They're not exercising, they're not eating right, and they're eating way too much fast food. And we also live a very sedentary life, i.e. sitting down all the time, not doing a lot of walking. We don't really walk to the different stores that we go to. We don't bike. And even like in Atlanta, we have the Beltline, for those that are in Atlanta. And so a lot of people live on the Beltline. But I find that a lot of people that live on the Beltline, they don't walk the Beltline. Instead, what they do is they get these little mechanical things, kind of like the one wheel, and they actually get on the one wheel and then they use the one wheel to go back and forth. So it's kind of like a little car type of thing or a scooter or something like that is going 15 miles an hour so that they can quickly go back and forth and they don't have to exert any physical, movement. So they're not doing any exercise. So even though they're living on the Beltline, even though they're living in a way because Atlanta really wants to be this, progressive city of the future where people walk around and they bike around, people are finding ways not to exercise. And so therefore, if you don't exercise and you don't eat right, okay, for most Americans, by the time they start to get into their 50s, their body starts to fall apart. And so now they need a prescription drug to live. So again, when we start to look at the nice guy and the nice woman, is it really that they end up last? Or is it really that they're picking people that will abuse them because a person that's giving just as much as them, they either think that person might be a little bit weird or it's something that they're not used to, or it just might be a thing where they just cannot stop giving. So I think we have to look at all these things, not just put everybody in one bucket.
So I really didn't like to fight too much or create too much, back and forth. I wanted to be very liked. It was like, it bothered me if you didn't like me, if you found something wrong with me. What did I do? Stuff that shouldn't have bothered me. So I wouldn't speak up when things would hurt me. And even though the guys were nice, and probably when you look back of the reasons why I broke up with some people or kind of drifted away, I was like, it probably could have been fixed if I didn't let everything accumulate and build up and pile up. And I just required a little bit more and I spoke up a little bit more. This relationship probably wouldn't have ended. But the immature mind, because you could be 50 years old and have an immature mind.
Okay, so I want to stop it right there because I want to talk a little bit more about the thinking type. This lady comes across to me as a thinking type. Remember, most women that you're going to see, for the guys that are watching online, they're going to have a little bit of instinct type, because it takes a little bit of instinct to get out here in these spaces. Now, thinking types are a little bit different because they can actually use the motivation of their mentors, i.e. the people that they look up to, and then they use that energy as to be something that actually pushes them forward. They are kind of a hybrid like that they can kind of get away with things that, the heart types and the instinct types don't get away with. But the reason why I'm telling you guys this is because these are the types of things I'm trying to get you to understand when you're actually out here dating. If you're basically saying, hey, I cannot find a woman, I can't find this, I can't get this, I want you to understand it. And remember, thinking types generally are attractive. They generally aren't as attractive as the instinct types but they generally are attractive. And remember, everyone is attractive, both men and women. So for the women that are watching me, all men are attractive. It's just whether or not, you are going to help that guy to get to where he is. It's actually funny because I just went out with one of my friends. She came into town and I hadn't seen her in a while. And so me and her went out and she actually looked at me. She was like, "Oh, I like that shirt. I like that shirt." And I actually laughed. I was like, "Well, you should. You picked it out." And she was like, "Yeah, I sure did." And so it's funny because what I've told you guys before, I'm not some super duper know how to dress like a boss type of guy. I lean in on my female friends, the friends that I have that have either put me in the friend zone or I put them in the friend zone. And then I'll basically say, "Hey, do you like this shirt? Hey, do you like this cologne? Do you like this chain? Do you like this watch?" And they will basically tell me, which ones to wear and what not to wear. And I generally go to the ones that are a little bit more fashionable. And especially if they're closer to the age of the women that I want to date, because those women are going to help me get to the look and feel. Now, again, I run into women that say, "Hey, a man should be able to figure it out on his own." Well, what I say is that no man is perfect. No woman is perfect. I am not going to be perfect. What I am very good at is the protection, provision, leadership piece. I am very good at teaching people. I am very good at, lining up and helping people. That is what I do. I am not a genius when it comes to image. Even when you guys talk about Kevin Samuels started his career as what? An image consultant. When he talked about it, he would tell people all the time, "I help millionaires. I help people that make six figures." Just because a person makes six figures does not mean that they know how to put their clothes together. And see, this is where I'm always telling women you're making a huge mistake. You're passing up on really great guys because you're concerned about what kind of shirt they have on, when the average man would gladly change out his shirt for you. And I've even said it before. If I run into a woman who halfway looks like, she would actually, wear some decent clothes or whatever, I have no problem with sitting down with her. Me and her can have a good date of it. And she can pull up, Shein or Sheen or however you want to call it. And we could do a Sheen haul, give her, $250 or $300. She buys some clothes that's cute to me. And then we're good. But if she doesn't wear clothes, like really cute clothes naturally, or if she's very picky or saying, "Well, I only want to wear t-shirts," or "I only wear sneakers and I'm never going to wear heels." See, that's not a woman I would want to talk to, because that woman has already said, "I have a borderline. I have a boundary. I have something that I'm never going to cross into that." And so for some people out there, they're looking for their person to be perfect. And I think everybody wants that perfect person. But what I've learned and what I'm trying to teach you is that if you get 65% of what you're looking for, you're probably going to have to work on that other 15 to 20%. That is just how it is. And for those that think, no, I'm going to find my person, what I'm saying is, see, that's when guys, especially men, start to say that women have unrealistic expectations. Right? It's not saying that you're not going to get anything that you want. It's not going to say that you're not going to get the core of what you want. But if you're saying, "I got to have a man who makes this money. I got to have a man who looks good. I got to have a man who dresses well. I got to have a man who speaks well. I got to have," all these things just keep adding and adding and adding. And you get to a point where it's just hard to find that dude. But if you say, "I want a guy who treats me well. I want a guy who makes a decent amount of money. I want a guy who has all these things," then you can add the rest. But remember, you don't build a man. For the ladies that are watching, and this is really key, because you can help him with his business by giving him a few ideas. You can help him with his career by giving him a few ideas. But if he does not have a career, if he's not moving in a direction of protection, provision, and leadership, you have to leave him alone. He has to be fully moving in that direction. He can't be talking about it. He can't say, "Well, next year I'm going to do this," or "This is my dream." No, he has to be in his dream. He has to be literally in the water of his dream. Otherwise, you have to leave him alone. And that's the same thing I'm telling men. Men, I'm just letting you guys know, especially those that are doing well financially, men historically have gone through and have glowed up women. All right. There's songs about it, level up and all this other kind of stuff. There's songs about it. So historically, men have done that for women. And I'm telling you straight up, I have no problem with doing it to a woman. but she has to be moving in that direction. She has to already be in the water. If she's not already trying to take care of her skin, if she's not already trying to take care of her hair, if she's not already trying to dress well, then there's nothing I can do for her, because as soon as you spend the money, she's going to be like, well, I don't want to wear that stuff. I don't want to do that stuff. You know, you can't help somebody that doesn't want it. But if they want it, now you might be that help that they need to get them over the hump.
You could be, oh, there's 60-year-olds out here, 60-year-old bachelors, men that's just still immature, getting out of marriage after marriage after marriage. Same for women. So age is not a factor in maturity alone. It's just not the whole.
Okay, I just want to amen her on that one. It's one of the things that I've talked about a little bit here and there, because a lot of people think age comes with maturity. And I've even run into women who say, well, I want to date an older guy. And they think just because he's older, he's more mature. And that's not true. Maturity is what it is. And really, the way I define maturity, and listen very closely, this is how I define maturity. It is the ability to do what you don't want to do because you know you need to do it. All right. So that is how I define maturity. So what does that look like? It looks like simply like this. You go to a job that you don't want to do because you know you got to pay your bills. When you're immature, you wake up in the morning and you say, I don't feel like going. So you just roll over and go back to bed. You don't even call in. You don't try to use a sick day or anything like that. Or you think, oh, I'll just get me another job tomorrow. That's immaturity. Maturity is, okay, I'm going to continue to work this job. I'm going to have this job for 2 or 3 years. Now I'm going to strategically change direction, maybe start another job, or maybe I know I'm doing too much, so I need to take a 1-week vacation so that I can relax before I start another job. That is maturity.
So my immature mind really just didn't want to rock the boat. Now, come to find out, I suffered a lot. I suffered a lot in those relationships. And I can probably guarantee that for most of you, probably not all, that is watching, you've been in relationships where you suffered because you didn't require much. Even if it's not an intimate relationship, like a boyfriend or a girlfriend type of situation, where it could have been a friendship. You didn't require much from the friendship. You was the doormat. You know, people walked all over you. You got whatever you got. You just felt lucky just to be loved or to be here, to be the friend or whatever, that you just didn't get much out of it wasn't reciprocal, basically.
Where she's saying, I understand her point. I understand that this gets a lot of views, but it still is not really the proper way to see it. The proper way to see it is to analyze who you're picking. See, if I had ran into this young lady and if I had dated her because of the way that I am and the way that I move, she would have gotten the world. She would have not had to worry about, oh, I'm being a doormat. Oh, I'm being this or I'm being that, because I'm very open to what people are trying to do. And then I listen to them. And then I am a servant leader, which is what I'm always encouraging men to be, servant leaders. And when you are a servant leader, then what you're doing is you're listening to your partner. And then you're basically saying, hey, what does my partner need? What does my partner want? And so you start to put that your partner's wants even ahead of your own. That is actually how Jesus moved. The only thing that he put above, the people that were following him's needs was what he had to do for God and what he was designed to do for God. And so when I am with a woman, yes, God comes first. My purpose comes first because that's what God has given me. But as soon as you get beyond my purpose, I would buy a car for my wife before I buy a car for myself. I will make sure that my wife looks good when she steps out before I look good, unless I am going to a place where I need to look good for a certain reason, if this makes sense, because I am actually putting her first. But see, what happens with a lot of women like this is that because they're moving in their energy, it's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy. They believe that no really men are out there that walk in that, or when they do find guys that actually put them first, it feels wrong. It feels off some kind of way. And because they're too young to really understand it, because she's saying, oh, when I was young, I don't know how old she is, but I doubt she's over 32. Okay. And I'm being real. I'm in my 40s. So I think I have a little bit more, not to, downgrade her experience, but I think I have a little bit more understanding about this, especially because I've studied a lot of things when it comes to the mind. and the way that people actually kind of go back and interact, right? So a lot of times when I'm telling you stuff, I'm not just telling you based off my experience. I'm telling you also based off of the way people work. That's why I was even talking about her being a thinking type. And I do think she's a thinking type. I think she has a little bit of heart type in her because she talks about wanting to, do things for other people a little bit. She says that a little bit. And that is the key of a heart type, is that they generally want to do things for other people. But the way that she moves, the fact that she's a little bit more calm, the way that she's kind of thinking around, and she even talks about in her mind, she kind of said that once or twice, that leads me into the fact that she's probably a thinking type. I don't feel the instinct. People are very direct, very quick. Now, this is how it's going to be, blah, 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 blah. Where thinking types, they're not going to make eye contact with you as much. They're going to look around more. Everybody looks around and everybody makes eye contact, but it's the amount. And hard types will make eye contact with you for the guys that are watching if they're in love with you. Okay, they will stare at you at that point, lovingly stare at you, But instinct types will stare at you all the time because they don't really see a point of looking around. And I've actually had dates where women were looking at me like, why you stare at me so much? And I'm like, because I'm an instinct. I see you as my prey, and I am studying my prey because that is how instinct type men work. And some women love that because it makes them feel, very small. It makes them feel, like I said, like, this predator is about to attack them, which is very, sexually arousing for a lot of women.
And then now they're in a positive one, and look at the difference in their face. I can always tell when a woman is dating a toxic man. I can always tell when a man is dating a toxic woman. They look older much quicker. They're not as happy on their face. They age, they wrinkle more. It's just, they're not put together. Now, when they're in a healthier relationship, they're glowing, they're thriving, they're almost aging backwards, they're youthful, they're happy and stuff when it gives a take. Don't like it. That there are girls out there that are going on dates where the guy he didn't even pay for $100 plate. He paid for a plate $50 or less. And because he paid for your meal on this date, you felt compelled to sleep with him. That is saying that your body physically is worth $50.
One of the things that I would say really quickly to the women that are watching is that you shouldn't really be so quick to have sex with a guy. I'm always encouraging women to take as long as they possibly can. People have talked about the 90-day rule, and I've always, kind of agree with it to a degree. And the reason why I say that is because it really is just about taking as long as you possibly can. Because I'm just being real. It's like, I know some women are just really sexually out there like that, and they just really want to enjoy the pleasures of sex. And I'm always talking about how sex for women is very much like a drug. So I understand that you all have your addiction and you like the guy. And so now that you want to experience it, or for some women, they actually do want to repay the guy. They want to show the guy that it's okay, that they are the ride or die type chick, or that they could be, that woman for him. So they're afraid of losing him. So these are, again, other reasons why you don't want to move too quickly, because if you do, it will hurt you. Now, for the guys, and for the ladies watching, I have to talk to the guys a little bit differently. This is one of the things that I'm always telling men. Why are y'all worried about women? It is so easy to get sex. I mean, it really is. I mean, once you're beyond 30 and you're halfway done what you need to do, guys, you can take a woman on, 2 dates or maybe even 1 date. Like she said, spend $50 on her, buying her a meal, or maybe the whole thing was just $60. And you will have women saying that they're willing to sleep with you. And so it's not hard, in order to get sex. And this is why, people are trying to encourage men to stay on their purpose, to stay on their grind. Do not chase women, because all it does is it throws you off. OK, so, these are, like I say, things that I just hope both sides kind of understand. But again, I don't encourage men to be so quick to sleep with women. And a lot of women will look at you almost, double take you, if you were basically like, I don't want to have sex with you right now. Instead, I would like to build up a friendship or whatever. And even if you don't want to build it up, just the fact that you said it, for a lot of women will get you cool points. OK, so if you can learn to control your sexual desire as a man, you're actually going to do a little bit better, in the long run than trying to rush in. And then just to be honest with you, I mean, you don't know where these women been. You don't know what kind of drama that they have been through. And that's why I encourage everybody, both men and women, to wait as long as you possibly can so you can kind of understand who this person is. Because I know we all, make mistakes and we all kind of fall into the trap. And if your heart is about doing things for God, I do believe that God will forgive you and he'll have grace with you. But it's still not good to try to put yourself in that situation. Instead, it's better just to talk on the phone or to do whatever it is so that you can really kind of get to know the person. And sooner or later, because everybody says, oh, well, people can put up a front. People can put up a front. Sooner or later, it's going to come through. And the people who put up the biggest front are the thinking types. They can put up a front like no other. But even with them, if you really pay attention to what they say and you watch what they do, it's going to come out. Generally speaking, within the first 3 to 6 months, it's going to come out because most people, what they want to do is when they get in a relationship, they want to relax. So sooner or later, they're going to relax and they're going to make a mistake. So make sure that you have your ears open so that you can listen to every single thing that they say and weigh it. All right. And don't always let them, talk it out, because that's what people will do. You'll have a guy, they'll say something, and I'm going to be real. I had this happen to me when I was on online dating. And I forgot exactly what I said, but I made a mistake. And I was talking to 2 women and I made a mistake. And I said something to one woman that had nothing to do with her. And so she came back and she was like, what is this? What do you mean by this? And so I actually played it off. I was like, well, I'm from Tennessee and we kind of say that all the time in Tennessee. And so she was like, oh, okay. And she just let it slide. And so that's kind of what I'm saying. It's like, ladies, men ain't stupid. They're going to be able to get themselves out of a couple of situations. And guys, it's the same thing for women. Women are going to be able to get themselves out of a couple of situations. So you have to be listening to them. And when you see a repeating pattern of anything, then you really need to be paying attention to that, because that's something that the person really, truly feels. And same thing when it comes to like submission. Like submission to me is a big thing, because as a Christian, and then honestly, as an alpha male, I don't like, hanging around with women who don't submit. And so for me, when I run into a woman who gives me argument over submission and she gives it to me 2 or 3 times, I'm like, yeah, you don't really believe this. And so I'm like, I have to make that decision at that moment, whether or not I'm going to continue to try to actually be in a relationship with her, or I'm just going to drop her right then. Because submission is a huge issue. And for a lot of women, it's very difficult for them to wrap their mind around submission because they just haven't been around a lot of really great guys. And so for me, it's very difficult for me to be in that true role that I feel like I'm called to be, of being that protector, provider, leader, if I have a woman that won't submit. Because when you're not submitting as a woman, you're basically putting yourself in a situation where you might do some things where I can no longer protect you, or you might do some things where I can no longer provide for you, or you might do some things where I can no longer lead you. And so now you're at odds with me in those 3 areas. And so it causes more problems than you believe that it fixes. But I believe, and I will say, remember, ladies, only submit to a man who has servant leadership. If he is not a servant leader, please do not submit to him.
You don't owe no one your body for a plate of food. And men have the audacity to believe that too. This was one of the reasons why in the past I would pay for my food on dates. Like I'd rather split. This was one of the big reasons. Now I'm not as strict with that, because I would vet the person very carefully before I go on a date with you to know that you're not even on that vibe. And I keep it real before we even get on a date of what to expect.
So, boom. I love the fact that she said that. I like the fact that a woman said that, because this is what I've been always encouraging men to do, especially the men that follow me. There's several influencers out here that talk to men. And one of these influencers always encourages men not to talk to women on the phone. In fact, he says if you talk to a woman on the phone, you talk to her for 10 minutes, you get off the phone, you set up the date, you go on the date, blah, 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 blah. And I do not encourage that at all. And one of the main reasons why I don't encourage that is because I am actually pushing for marriage. I am not pushing for girlfriends or boyfriends. All right. And in order to get to know someone, you need to talk to them. You need to spend time with them. You need to communicate with them. And the easiest way to do that is via the phone. And so what she's basically saying is, I'm going to spend time with a guy on the phone before I go on a date with him. And so for the ladies that are watching, because there's women out there, they're like, well, I don't want to be on the phone. I want to get to the date and all these guys got me on the phone. But the whole thing is how he has you on the phone. Is he trying to go from the phone to a date? Is he telling you what direction he's going down when you're on the phone? Is he very open and honest with how he's dealing with this phone communication? See, all those things matter. If you get on the phone with a guy and you guys never talk about a relationship, you never talk about anything, you're just talking about trivial things about like, what was happening on your favorite TV show. What you're doing at that point, yes, you're communicating and you're bonding, but you don't really know anything about him. You don't know what direction he wants to go in his life or she wants to go in her life. So really a lot of that information is really wasted. See, 20 to 30% of your conversation should be about how you guys are going to come together as a couple. Now, you don't want the whole conversation to be like that because that's when it starts to feel like an interview and it's no fun. And then you just kind of like, I don't feel like being bothered with that person. And that person seems strange. So you don't want to do that. Instead, you want to spend a good portion of the time just having fun. But then you also want to have those little nuggets about what direction you're going. And so what she's figured out is that is important. And I've always said it's important for both men and women. And it really helps both sides not to waste their time. And for guys, it helps them not to waste their money. Okay, a lot of you guys are upset because you're going on all these dates and you're spending all this money. And one of the things that I've constantly told guys is that I do believe that you should pay for the first couple of dates. And so there's always hate in the comments and there's always, hate from people, but again, you're not getting the full picture. You're taking one little nugget that I said without understanding the full spectrum of what I'm saying. What I'm trying to get you all to do is before you go on the date, before you see her little face, her pretty face, I'm saying spend some time on the phone. A minimum, I would say of 30 minutes, but I actually prefer closer to an hour. Because honestly, if I'm on the phone with a lady for an hour and I want the conversation to continue, I want to continue to talk to the woman, then I know that this is a woman that I probably might actually enjoy a date with and I might enjoy more from in the future. But if I do not enjoy even 15 minutes on the phone with this lady, I am not going to enjoy a date. And then I will have lost money on a woman that I don't even like. And just like I've said before, like this year, I've only been on 2 dates this entire year. But I budget for dates. I know how much I'm going to spend per date on average and different things like that. But I'm not necessarily in a rush to get on a date. Once I meet a woman and I see, that she looks like kind of what I'm looking for, then I'm trying to see whether or not her personality is there. And then after her personality is there and her looks are there, then I'm like, ooh, I want to see this woman again. And then that's when I'm very quick to try to set up a date or something like that where we can get together in person so I can make sure, okay, she looked like what I remember.
No, expectations are clear. This is where I stand. So they know, hey, if I pay for a meal for her, it's not going to end like that. So now I'm not, be a gentleman, pay for my meal. I don't mind. Hey, go ahead. But back then when I had the people pleasing and I knew it would be more difficult for me to try to hurt someone's feelings, I'd rather just pay for my food because I don't want to give you the wrong idea. But there's a lot of women that do feel like, hey, he did this for me. So, some men will try to take you on a trip. Y'all just started talking. You haven't known this man for even a month and you're already traveling with him because he know, hey, if I pay for your flights, they fly you out, they take you out, they got to get something from it. And, oh, you're already asking for a vacation and you single. A man sees that, oh, you want a vacation? I got you and I'm going to get some. And they feel like your body is worth that. You are worth far more than $50. Let me tell you, do you know if you took out one of your kidneys and sold it, you could make like $150,000 for a good kidney? Depending on the state you are in, some would even pay like $350,000 for a kidney.
So I understand the point of what she's trying to make there, because she's just trying to say know your worth. But I think a date and sex is kind of hard to line up with actually dollar value, because I'll be honest with you, I think a man's sex is actually worth something too. And now I know probably for the type of men maybe that she's dealt with in the past, she hasn't seen that. And one of the things that we always have to say is it's always about, like I say, the person that you're dealing with. I can never really stress that enough. A lot of people believe that they're not good people in the world just simply because they only deal with bad people. It's like I said, I mean, my background, like I say, is, like I kind of hate to bring up the class thing, but I have to because it's the only way I can really, describe it. But, my background is middle class. Like I say, I was lower middle class, but I was middle class. So when I'm around middle class women, they act totally different. They move differently, they walk differently, they talk differently, and then they want different things. And then you have women they're from the lower class, but then they went to school or whatever. So now they're technically middle class, but they don't have the background, of a middle class woman. And, or we can say it from the fact of, I grew up with both parents. Okay. And I run into women who only grew up with one parent. So a woman who grows up with one parent acts totally different than a woman who grew up with both parents. Then you have situations where your one parent might have not have been a good parent. Or you might have had to take care of your brothers and sisters. Or you might be a guy who every single day, you were ducking bullets or doing your best to avoid gang members who are trying to basically recruit you in their gang. See, all these things are different factors that everybody's going through. I mean, not everybody, but, a lot of people are going through depending upon where you are in the world. And this is another reason why I'm always encouraging people. Sometimes your best bet is to leave. Because one of the worst things that can happen to you is you'll be dealing with some people from high school who still want to kick it with you, but then their influence is hurting you from actually moving to a better place. But like I've told you, don't move to Atlanta. Okay, move to Nashville, move to Charlotte. I've heard Raleigh is really good. A couple of people have talked to me about Raleigh. People who have moved to Texas, Dallas, Houston have nothing but good things to say about it. So those are really great places where you can move. But anyway, I did want to wrap this on up. I like most of what she had to say because I do think it's coming from a very genuine place. But I think you have to rethink about what it is that you're trying to do. And when you're starting to talk about nice guys and nice girls, it's not so much, guys, about being a mean person. That's really not going to get you where you want in your life. You just have to pick according to that and deal with mature people that are actually able to give you the life that you want. And sometimes you got to talk it out. I mean, if you find somebody that's really great in a lot of different ways, but you find that they're a giver and you're a giver, sometimes you might have to trick them and be like, okay, well, I'm going to take for the first 3 weeks until we get really comfortable. And then as you start to give more, you might have to say, well, look, I'm letting you know I'm a giver and this is how I move. And I can, sometimes, people have problems if both people are givers, but I think in the long run, it'll work better for us, blah, blah, blah. And I'm always surprised at how many people will not just say what they want. Now, I do agree with that. I do think you have to say what you want, but don't say it in an elitist way, in a way of saying, well, you got to hit my standards. Like she kept talking about a $50, this $50 meal. And I'm going to tell you straight up, ain't no woman getting no $50 for a meal out of me on the first date. Okay, it ain't happening. Okay, now maybe if I was a multimillionaire, I would not care because I might want to go to some, really crazy and fancy restaurants here in Atlanta. But it's like I've always told you guys, when I look at out on Google, and I'm like, okay, this one got $2 signs. And even when it says $2 signs, I always look for the menu. I'm always looking for the picture where somebody's taking a picture of the menu. And if you guys are one of the people that takes a picture of the menu and you put it on Google, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I love you guys. I love you. I love you because I want to see the menu and I want to see how much it costs, to go there. And I'm looking for, like I said, I want the highest, the most expensive thing on the menu. It cannot be over $40 because I'm not going to take a chance that a woman's going to come in and buy that plus a $15 drink. And, before you know it, she's rolling up the cost. I'm looking for a woman who's basically saying, I'm not concerned about the cost. I'm just concerned about getting to know you. And then once she does that, and this is why I don't agree with some of the stuff that she was saying in the beginning, is that once she has proven that she's a good woman and that I like her in that way, that point, I might say, well, we've been dating for 3 months now. So let's go to this place that's $50, $70, $100 a plate. Because at that point, in my mind, she deserves, to have that experience. Or if it's her birthday, or if it's, some other kind of special occasion. But I ain't balling like that. And even if I was balling like that, that wouldn't be what I would do. And that's not what I encourage any man to do, unless that's just what you want to do. Like I said, if you want to go to those restaurants, fine. But one of the things that I've learned, especially here in Atlanta, which I think is hilarious, I've gone, like recently I had to go, somebody's birthday, and I went to a restaurant and it was basically Thai food. And this place is downtown Atlanta, and the only way you could even get in there is for them to do valet. So I had to pay for valet, then I get inside, and it's beautiful. I mean, it was gorgeous in there. And then the cheapest meal was $35. The cheapest. You know, and people were ordering appetizers and drinks and all this other kind of stuff. And I was like, give me the $35 chicken. I'll take the $35 chicken. And so just me having a $35 chicken and, you know, the valet, I mean, I was already at $45. So for me, it's like, would I want to go there? I mean, like I said, it was beautiful. It cost all this money. But here's the whole thing. I think about a month later, I actually ordered Thai food via DoorDash. I wasn't feeling well, and Thai food, sometimes you can get, Thai food is a little softer on you. So, you know, I decided to order DoorDash. And here was the whole thing. The Thai food for $15 through DoorDash tastes better than the $45 one I had. And the only thing that I really got out of it is ambiance. And see, for me, I'm not really an ambient guy. You know, that doesn't really move me like that. So for me to spend all the extra money just for ambiance, and I find a lot of men are the same way. A lot of men don't like spending that money for ambiance. It's like, unless the food really tastes that good, it's just kind of like, you know, why am I spending, you know, $45, $50 a plate? But some of you guys, y'all like that. Y'all like that ambiance. Y'all like being in those places. There's nothing wrong with that. You know, that is you. But for the guys that aren't like that, you don't need to take these women to those places. You don't have to take them to those places at all. But I think that if you never take them on special occasions or every once in a while, I do think that that's not good. You know, because especially if a woman desires that. Now, not all women desire that. Remember, we talked about different types of women. So not all women desire that. But you should be good to the woman who is good to you. I truly believe that. Be good to the woman who is good to you. Anyway, please like, please subscribe, and I'm going to see you all in the very next video.